Hi, Mary.
Hello there.
Nice to officially meet you.
Oh, I'm so happy to see you. And
I know, and it's kind of funny. We're talking about the voice, and my voice is really hoarse today. So
oh my
um,
gosh, I can hear that. Oh, well, maybe we'll get some tips for you today. Oh my
I know,
goodness.
right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll give it just a minute. Amber, I didn't know if you wanted to join us on camera or stay off. Amber's our producer, so she'll be there
Oh, wonderful.
monitoring everything. And I actually, if I lose my voice, I may
You have
actually
your water nearby?
yeah, I've been actually doing the Hall's mentholyptus. So
Very good. Yeah.
yeah, we'll do our best to get through. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I know people trickle in as they will, but out of respect for your time, I know how busy you are. That I'd like to go ahead and get started on time. And we do record these episodes, and they'll appear on our YouTube channel, Adventures by the Book, afterwards. So people who tune in late or miss it won't have to miss it all. So, hello, Firesiders, and welcome to Adventures by the Book. And I'm sorry for my raspy voice, where our mission is to connect people through the superpower of books. I'm your host, Susan McBeth, and I'm delighted to be hosting today's fireside chat with author, Broadway singer, vocal coach to the stars, Mary Setrakian. We are going to talk about her new book, which is a beauty. Sing, Find Your True Inner Voice, and where Mary shares her techniques and profound insights that help people find their true voice. And not only that, but since Fireside is designed as an interactive platform, Mary has graciously agreed to diagnose your speaking voice on the spot. So be prepared to join us on our virtual stage for that fun experience, and don't be shy. And a special thank you to musician Terry Woolman. I was hoping he'd be joining us, and maybe he will be. Host of Making It with Terry Woolman, a podcast on Fireside, because he's actually the one who introduced me to Mary and made today's program possible. So thank you, Terry, wherever you are. Just a reminder, if you're in the live or virtual audience, you can broadcast this conversation live by just clicking on the round circle in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. Click on the little globe, and it'll send you a link that you can share and broadcast on your social media platforms. And if you haven't already ordered a copy of Sing, Mary's new book, you can go to Amazon and order that today. I highly recommend it. So, Mary, as a master voice teacher, Mary prepared Nicole Kidman for her Oscar nominated performance in Moulin Rouge. She's been the master voice teacher to Grammy Award winners Michael Bolton and Mary J. Blige, Oscar winners Forrest Whitaker and Kate Winslet, as well as James Gandolfini and Mandy Moore. She was the vocal coach to Ben Daniels for his performance as Pontius Pilate in Jesus Christ Superstar, one of my all-time favorites, on NBC starring John Legend. She herself has been seen on Broadway in Hello, Dolly, starring Carol Channing. She toured with the Broadway companies of The Phantom of the Opera, another favorite of mine, Les Miserables, Hello, Dolly, Evita, and was featured at Carnegie Hall in Jubilee. Mary holds a master's in voice performance and distinction from the New England Conservatory and is a graduate of Stanford University in music and voice with honors. She has also studied acting for over 30 years. Mary, we could spend 45 minutes just talking about your ongoing credentials because I've left out a whole majority of them, but we want to get the conversation rolling. So, welcome, Mary, and congratulations on the new book.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here. It's my first interview about the book, so I'm really thrilled. Thank you.
Oh, yay. Well, we're honored. And it's kind of funny you're talking about voice and I don't have a voice. So you're going to have to do most of the talking, which I'm sure everybody's more excited for anyway. But I want to go back a bit in time and learn about your background before you became the superstar you are today, an accomplished professional. Because even though you have an incredible voice, what I'm learning through you is that it's not a guarantee you're going to make it. So I'm curious, when did your interest in music begin? And was there a particular inspiration or experience that drove you to work in the music profession?
Well, I think it all began with my dad. So I he had me and my three brothers when I was just 3 years old, sitting around a reel-to-reel recorder and singing together. So he loved singing, and he took me aside, and we sang together. In fact, in my audiobook, I have real audio of me singing with my dad. It was quite an inspiration for me at 3 years old. So as I grew up in California, and yes, I went to all those beautiful schools and got a great voice technique. I discovered that, yes, I really, really wanted to sing. But then I realized, gosh, I want Broadway. So I moved to New York, and, I got right into a company, a light opera company that called the Light Opera of Manhattan. And I moved up the ladder and was in the chorus, $35 a week, and then moved up into the leads, which was like $115 a week. So I was a secretary during the day, but I had my feet on a stage and I just loved it. But I was also at the same time auditioning for these Broadway shows, and something was missing. Something just wasn't working. I could get a call back, but I just couldn't land those shows. And that's when I realized I had to find an acting teacher, and I went on a search, which is in the book actually, about the search. And to my luck, I found Susan Batson. And I think meeting her, she's the acting coach she's 80 years old this week, and she teaches Nicole Kidman and Juliette Binoche and Lady Gaga. So she's still doing her craft. And this was 30 years ago when I met her. And I think that inspired me, because what I found out is that my emotions were blocked. I wasn't able to access them for the work. And it was so life-changing to work with her, because she's known as sort of, she gets the spirit out of you. And I found a way to connect that to my voice technique. And that changed not only my career, that's when I started landing those big jobs you mentioned, but it also changed my personal life. I felt like I understood myself. I was, that adage of, you are enough, you are so enough, it's unbelievable how enough you are. That's what Susan said to me, and that became something that I could really trust and bring to my life and to my work. And it's just been a real journey now, and my passion to share this. So my method has both sides, the 5 elements of voice technique, and then 5 elements of the voice of the emotional life that we put together. And it's just been an incredible journey.
Well, I could hear the passion in your voice. And, I usually ask authors when I'm talking to them about, because they've all held a series of jobs before they became a writer. And it sounds like you went right into the music world, but were there some, kind of sketchy jobs or interesting jobs that you want to share that you had to endure before you got to where you are today?
Oh, that's good. Yeah. When I was in grad school, I was a waitress at the Ground Round in Boston, where I think you not only serve the food, but you wash the dishes. The only thing you don't do is cook the food. So that was a wonderful way to get through grad school. And when I got to New York, like I said, I was a secretary in the morning. That worked out perfectly, because I was able to work all morning and most of the afternoon, and then get to the theater, because I was in this repertory company. And then I had it was kind of the joy, it's still there today, the Hourglass Tavern on Restaurant Row. So I was the typical actress waitress for a while. I was lucky enough that they weren't horrible jobs, but when you're auditioning morning and night and trying to make ends meet, it's a challenge for sure. But as my dad always said, waitressing is actually very creative, because you have to come to the table and say hello, and so you just make every job as creative as you can.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it, because I think we've all had some of those restaurant jobs. Mine was at the Royal Fork, making $1.40 an hour, and I had to make salads. And at the end of my shift, my hands always smelled like salads, no matter how much I washed them. So
Oh,
you said it was kind of a lifelong
the
dream to
smells in the
perform.
restaurant.
You said it was kind of a lifelong dream to perform on Broadway. Um, and if you read Mary's book, and I hope you do, I know it was just recently released, but you can go get your copy. You'll learn she wasn't an overnight success, as she talked about previously. There's a journey to get there. And you have to overcome some of your own personal obstacles, which you clearly did, but you're now using that experience to teach others what you had to learn along the way. So is that what inspired you to write the book?
It really did. Gosh, I think Nicole Kidman was really my first student. I've always been teaching ever since I was even in college, but that was back in 1998, preparing her for her audition for Baz Luhrmann. And since then, I've been on this journey of sharing the work, and it's just kind of incredible what the singing can do. I always call it a spiritual channel of communication. So when you're helping others, it's really my job to listen and to hear and to feel and to help them become the vessel of their voice, whether it's speaking or singing high opera or doing pop rock or jazz or Broadway. It doesn't matter what style. It's all getting past, so you can get through the tension or the stress or the blocks. And for me, it was an emotional block. And I have lots of stories in the book as I'm giving you the guide of how to do it. I think they're interesting little posts where you can learn about, through storytelling, of what I experienced with my students. It inspired me, so I hope it inspires others.
Well, I know it's inspired me because you talk about in the book. What I like is you break it down to the different types of singers, whether you're a classically trained singer or a Broadway singer or somebody like me who's tone deaf. You break it down, and I love how you did that. Can you talk a little bit about how you decided to break the book down and a little bit about each of those segments?
Yes, that was one of the first chapters that I wrote. It's basically saying, who are you today? Are you a trained singer? Are you a musical theater singer? Are you somebody are you a composer or an instrumentalist that thinks you'd like to sing? Do you sing in the shower? Do you think you can't carry a tune? Do you think you're tone deaf? And talking about how we're gonna organize ourselves to go through. So structuring, or the architecture of the book, I think that's why it took me so long to write it. It started about 18 years ago. It was my first trip to Italy, where I was performing my concerts and doing my first master classes there. And my pianist at the time, I think he got very inspired by the emotions connecting to the technique, and he said, you need to write a book. And he introduced me to a wonderful publisher at Curci in Milan, Lauro Moro. So that's where it began. But it took this 18 years and a long journey to figure out how to put what I do in front of a group into a book. I tell you, I admire writers because it is quite a journey. It's a lot to figure it out and to have editors and people to read your work and to help. So even the last 7 years, I think, when I worked with my literary agent, that's when it really came to fruition, putting the 10 elements together and making it hopefully really clear. So when you read it, you can really go along with it, do the exercises, and find your true voice. Hopefully find the potential of your voice.
And it's not a stretch for you because, I mean, writing books is storytelling just like singing is, right?
It really is. And I've always loved writing. I've always kept a journal. I had a great teacher in high school. I think that's why I always felt confident about writing. So it's just finding that, I always say architecture, but just how do you link them together? I think one of the big differences is when I'm teaching, I'm telling you what to do in the room, but in the book, you get to go inside my mind and hear what I'm thinking and how I'm diagnosing the voices. So it's got some extra special information that maybe even my students don't know about how I work.
Well, I know since I started reading your book, I'm paying more attention to people's voices. I'm listening how clear your voice is. And does that have significance to a singing voice? Because you've seen the stories like Jim Nabors when he played Gomer Pyle. You're probably too young to remember that, but he had this silly voice, but he was this
Oh, no, I
incredible singer.
remember.
Yeah. So is there a correlation between somebody's speaking voice and their singing voice?
Absolutely. It's all about what I call resonance. So, and you're doing quite well today because I know you have issues in the throat, with the laryngitis, but you're beginning to toss it forward into your cheeks. And these are our resonators. They're bones and cartilage, and they surround air pockets. And so you're finding more voice by getting more vibration there. And what Jim Nabors did is he did a character voice. So he manipulated his resonation to be more, whether it was, I can't really do exactly his voice, but it's a little more nasal, kind of like Janice on Friends, yeah? And then when he sang, va, he had that gorgeous baritone, and he knew how to organize his resonance so that it had overtones and richness in it. So that's why you can sing in any style. The first 3 chapters of my book are breath, support, and resonance. You have to have the breath and support lined up correctly to get to the resonance. But Jim Nabors that's a great example. I love that.
Well, that probably just dates me, I think, but and so can you actually tell from listening to
Not at
someone
all.
speaking how well they can sing?
I think I can tell what their potential is.
Oh, interesting.
I think that happened with Nicole Kidman. She had this beautiful, when I met her, she had this beautiful voice. Of course, the Australian accents have different placements of resonance, and the Australian accent's very forward and vibrant. And I knew she had a beautiful voice. I wasn't worried. She said, "Do you think I can really sing?" when she was preparing her audition for Baz Luhrmann. And I said, "Yeah, I know you can." And sure enough, she can.
Well, speaking of Nicole Kidman, I'm curious because you are an accomplished performer, but you've always been a teacher, you said. But how did you kind of pivot to a teaching career? And do you do both now? Do you sing professionally and teach, or do you just teach, or one or the other? And I'm curious how you pivoted over. I mean, does somebody call you up and say, "Hey, I want you to coach Nicole Kidman"?
Yeah, that did happen actually, because I was working with Susan Batson, and she at that time, so this is 1998, so it's a good time ago, 25 years. I can't count right now, and she had just started working with her and said, "Look, Nicole has an audition." I had just returned from playing Madame Giry in the Phantom of the Opera for a year on tour in the Music Box Company. And so of course I was thrilled, with that idea. I think Susan was excited to have me there, in that I understood the acting work that she was doing with Nicole, and that I knew that it would be seamless. And at the time she was doing the Blue Room on Broadway, and her family, they were all staying at Sting's house, which was crazy. So here I am sitting at Sting's piano and teaching Nicole. So it was quite a first step into the teaching. But yes, I am still doing concerts. That's really my passion right now, because it's something that I can organize and do. I've done many in Italy, and I did at Stanford University, around the country and internationally. So. And my one-woman, salons and shows I do here in New York off Broadway at the Triad Theater. So I feel like I say walk the talk. I know it's really walk the walk, but if I'm telling you what to do, I better be doing it. That's how I feel at this time. And it's just wonderful to share, with my students, and yeah, keep them going and keep me going too.
Yeah, but the thing that's amazing about you is, you're working with all these celebrities, you're performing on Broadway around the world, but you take the time to actually teach, just regular everyday people that may not necessarily be pursuing a career. I mean, you do your, what do you call it, your black box theater several times a year in New York City. Can you tell us a little bit about what the black box theater is and why you do it?
So before COVID, I was teaching at the Susan Batson studio, which was in Times Square. And it was my regular, I would organize my workshops. Now they're really online. So in fact, I'll be doing a workshop in June with another company here in New York. But yeah, I always organize these workshops, and it's fun, the black box theater, because on our theater row or Times Square, you go into these little theaters, and they're a place where you can really focus and concentrate and focus in on the work. But it's really a passion of mine. And during COVID, I did what I called my quarantine voice lessons. And every week I went on my YouTube channel and I did the black box theater right there, and invited everybody from around the world, no matter if they were athletes or singers or just, somebody wanting to sing. I just believe that we have a God-given voice, and so many people are told when they're in school or in their families, oh, don't sing. Oh, you don't sound good. Shut up. And I tell you, because it's a personal channel, it's like a really spiritual, personal channel of communication, it can really harm you and take away something that is your God-given right. So I love teaching all different levels. I think it's, in my classes, I'll often have a couple people maybe that don't sing on pitch at the beginning, and others that are on Broadway honing their craft, and others that are singing in community theater. And when they all come together, there's something really magical that happens. At the end of the class, I'll often say to my professional, well, who was your favorite in class? And they'll often say the one that couldn't sing on pitch, because by the end, they were singing on pitch. So the singers are sitting there going, wait a minute, if I hone what they just did, they just added Mary's tools of acting and sending and telling a true story, and their voices changed. What if I did that in my full truth? What would happen? So there's a sharing that goes on. I don't know if that makes sense. It's a lot of things that happen in class in different ways, but it's special. And also what happens in a class is the support of each other. I make sure that we have supportive people, and I'm a supportive person. That's just my nature, but I tell the truth. And so when the classmates are supporting each other, the growth is faster than if I gave a private lesson. The growth is so fast and so profound. It's something much bigger than what I could do by myself. It's really it makes me feel very grateful. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, you say in your book that singing is a miracle. And can you perform miracles and teach anybody to sing?
Well, I can just tell you my experience. One of the stories I tell about Jason, I was in LA doing a class, and he came in and he said he was in the movie Rent, and I thought, oh my God, great. I got an actor here who sings, it's great. And I played the piano and he sang for me, and every note was out of pitch, every single one. And he said, oh, I was acting. I wasn't really singing in the movie. I said, okay. And it was a 2-day workshop. And so we, of course, did the technical stuff. You have to get the breath support and resonance really in place. But then by the end of the second day, when he was connected to his true emotions and he had his story, not just a general story about, oh, I want to sound good and sing my pop song. When he was telling an intimate story, that what I call personalization, that comes from his life, the pitches, it was a miracle. And all the pitches lined up, and everybody in class cried from his performance. So it always surprises me too. Don't get me wrong. It's not like, oh, I know I'll push this button and that will work. It's just a journey that you take together, and so it's gratifying. That's for sure.
That's wonderful. Well, I love that you're so passionate about it, that you take a gift that you have and you're so successful and so busy, but you take the time to help those who aren't at that level. I think that's really a beautiful thing. So I congratulate you for that. I do kind of want to pivot over a little bit because Fireside, one of the beautiful things about Fireside is it is an interactive program. And I know you said that you can diagnose speaking voices. And I want to talk to you a little bit about, first of all, what that means and what does it have to do with singing. But while Mary is answering that question, I want to invite anybody who is in our audience to invite yourself up on stage if you want to have your voice diagnosed right here on the spot. Which now this is a treat, you guys. This is a internationally renowned Broadway singer and a hugely accomplished musician. I mean, with a capital H, hugely. And she's here willing to diagnose your speaking voice. So if you are interested in doing that, and I encourage you to be brave and go to that little circle in the lower left-hand corner of your screen and invite yourself up, and Mary will do that. But while we're waiting for some brave person to do that, Mary, can you tell us a little bit about what that means, diagnosing speaking voices, and what it has to do with singing?
Well, as I was saying earlier about resonance, just to give an example right now, there's a common way of speaking, and mostly the younger generation right now, which many call vocal fry, where they're talking in their throat. So it's something like this, where you're talking in your throat, and it's kind of like, what I think it's like, they're kind of being cool, and they're pushing down their real emotions, and so they're not wanting to connect to their true emotions. It's also just a habit, because we hear people in our culture speaking like that. So it's very contagious. And it's also rubbing your vocal cords together. So there's two things going on. One could be that you just picked it up because it's contagious, meaning, you're resonating with somebody in your family or a friend of yours that speaks like this. One of my students, she was in college, and she came back from college speaking like this. And she said, oh my God, my bandmates all told me I sound completely different. And we changed her speaking voice from being here to resonating, what I spoke about before, the front passage resonators, which I call your cheeks and these air pockets here. And so that's going to be what I would say your power, your truth, your vulnerability. This is actually kind of putting aside yourself and covering your truth. You're not exposing that. And so that's just a quick story of understanding a little bit about what I'm listening for in a diagnosis.
Interesting. And it looks like we don't have any brave souls that are volunteering, but you still have a chance to do that. But okay, Amber, do you want us to call on you and go for it? So Amber's the producer of our program, and she does all the behind the scenes thing that make this work so well.
Right, Debbie
But,
also there.
yes, Debbie's here too, and I see Terry's in
I
the
see
audience
Debbie?
too, and we'll talk about Terry in just a minute. But let's go ahead and start with Amber and see how that goes. So take it away, Mary.
Wonderful. So I just can cross off this. It's in my screen. Okay, there we go. So where's Amber?
Hi, I'm up here, hopefully with you.
You're up here. You're frozen on my screen, but I can hear you.
Okay.
So tell me a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Amber Reinhart, and I work for Susan McBeth in Adventures by the Book, and I've been a communications coordinator for almost 2 years now, and I love what I do. I love books.
I love it. Well, I think your voice is in a really great place. I think it's resonating beautifully. You love what you do. I would dare say that you have an amazing power, Amber. There's a deeper goddess in you. Like you have the possibility of taking the world by its tail. That's kind of your joy and your love. And I love where you're resonating. If you were to read my book, I would suggest to go through the first 3 chapters, but the breath and support, there's something in the support. Support is always something weird to talk about because like, what do you mean support? But I talk about the super belly button, like when we sneeze and we go, achoo, there's this action with the belly button that moves in, and that's connected to your power, connected to your vulnerability, and it's something that will also protect your voice so that you could even have more colors or more power if you choose to. First of all, I love where it is right now. It's really great. But what are you aware of when I say, you've got some power, young lady?
I haven't heard that before, and I've actually been told by family members that I sound like my brothers, so I feel like I have like a masculine voice almost sometimes, because I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks and, like female voices, they're distinct and nice, and so it's nice to hear from you that you think that about me. I will remind my family what you said. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
I have brothers too, and I just want to say it's kind of like, and I talk about in the book about family resonance. You can, like Michael Jackson's family, they all spoke really high. You speak really well, but now instead of being like somebody else, I want you to take your voice and speak out of yourself. Rather than I'm going to, it's nice to be inspired. I love it. I love listening to other podcasts, listening to other people's voices. You have a gorgeous tone. Don't change a thing. You're not changing your timbre. You just have to step in fully.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Brava. Really great, Amber. Really great.
Thank you. And way to be brave, Amber. And I see that Debbie has joined us on screen too, but I want to put her on camera so that Mary can see her while she's speaking to her. But Amber, I don't know if you can invite her on camera because my screen is frozen.
Oh, great. Let's see. I had her before and now I don't have her there. Let's see.
She can at least speak, but Amber. I was trying to get her on camera too.
There we are.
Hello. I really wasn't prepared to be on screen, but here I am.
Yeah, you look great.
Yeah. Straight off the pickleball court.
Oh, fantastic. I love it.
So okay.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. Yeah.
So my name is Debbie. I actually am the director of operations at Novel Network, which is the sister company to Adventures by the Book. So I work with Susan, and I don't know how much information I should share. You talked about familial voice. I'm Susan's sister, is what I'm saying. So I don't know if there's.
Let me tell you what I'm hearing. Yeah. Let me tell you what I'm hearing first, and then you can tell me. That would be fun.
Okay.
So you in your life have had to get your point across. Like you have other people that come in and talk, and you've had to really make sure to get your point across. And your voice is really resonating beautifully. You're not doing that vocal fry thing. So everything's very like, whoa. And I love that. But I think you can trust a little more because you have a presence. Like you walk in a room and we feel you, which is fabulous. And it's Women's Month, and we were talking about that. I want women to take their power. So the only thing I would suggest is in your resonance, if you can go more through your cheeks. I did this with James Gandolfini, actually. So to go like, rather than, hey, I'm over exaggerating just to show you, because it's not ugly at all. Your voice is beautiful. But rather than like that, I want you to go more wider with your cheeks and just think and just trust. Give that a try. Let me hear you again.
Okay, so I'm speaking with my mouth wide open, I guess. I'm not sure I
Well,
understand.
more than your
So,
mouth, just your cheeks wide. You don't understand. Okay, it's okay. So tell me what you tell me about your family.
I'm sorry, what?
Tell me, you said you were going to share something about your sisters or your family.
Oh, no, I was just going to let you know that Susan and I are sisters, so I don't know if that's something that would be of interest to you or
Oh,
comparative or
Well, it is interesting, the whole family thing that she brings
I
up,
love
because
that.
her grown daughter, when I call them, they sound identical on the phone. Their voices are identical. Um, and so I don't know if
Yeah.
you have anything to say
Well,
about.
well, there is a DNA. You know, we do have vocal cords, and they do have a certain DNA, so the sound can be very similar. But there's also a resonance. So what I'm saying is that your resonance is very direct, and I think that's cool. I would much prefer that than being, back and not. But just I would just say the word trust.
that's
I
pretty
would say trust your
intuitive.
greatness because you are great.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. But
How
that's
do you
pretty
mean? What do you?
intuitive. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, do we have any other
My
brave
pleasure, because you are spectacular, and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to trust that. So thank you for coming on. I love it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Debbie. And if we have any other brave souls, this is your chance. The one and only Mary Setrakian is willing to diagnose your voice. And can you do that with somebody who has a hoarse sore throat issue?
Yeah. Well, what I'm curious about is when did it come on the laryngitis, Susan?
Well, actually, I had some kind of bug about a month ago. It was not COVID. I was tested twice for COVID. And my husband got sick at the same time. We got the same thing. It was like a flu thing. And it took us about a week to get over it. My husband went right back to being normal. But I have had voice issues for the past month. So I've had this tickle in my throat, that I'm up coughing all night, and just have this hoarseness that hasn't gone away. And I don't know what that is from, if it's part of the bug or.
Well, I'm sure it is part of all that. I would just do a little bit of not housekeeping, but just internal thought about what you might be angry about. It might just be angry about being sick, but maybe write it down, like release some of the anger. I think you're a little, it's like the anger's gotten a little bit caught. And I mean, we all get anger is good. It's not a bad thing, but it's if it gets caught, it can manifest and kind of keep staying there. So I would suggest to just write it out. Maybe I don't want you to scream because I don't want you to hurt your vocal cords, but just kind of give a little light to anything you might be angry about, and really expose and let it come out and release it. And I think that will even just in thought, on paper, it doesn't have to be I'm angry, it can just be wow, I need to let that go. And I think that will help the emotional side of it. Of course, there's viruses, it's not like they don't do something, but that could be maybe an emotional side of that. Does that ring true?
Yeah, not really to my knowledge, but maybe there is something. I don't know. I'll have to explore that for sure, because I know you are very intuitive. So
Just a little bit, just explore.
absolutely,
Well, the
absolutely.
other thing is maybe something that you haven't said. It might not be anger. It might be just be something that you haven't said out loud, and maybe you wouldn't want to say it to that person anyway. But just write those things out. Just something maybe that's unspoken.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, And I know, I guess we don't have any other brave souls. I mean, we have a few minutes left, but I want to talk about your book a little bit because it's filled with savory nuggets. Like this is a quote that I really like. Your voice technique is in your emotions, and your emotions are in your voice technique. And I was intrigued by that idea. And I wonder if you can share, we don't want to give too much away because we want people to read your book, but if there are any stories or any other nuggets of wisdom that you can share with us that were particularly profound to you.
Yeah, the first story I talk about, which is the breath, there was this amazing young girl, 11 years old, and she was 6 feet tall. It was a group. Let's see, what was the name of the group again? They were called, Art Saves Lives. They were from St. Martin. And she was just this darling gal, 11 years old, and the group was 11 to 18, but she was 6 feet tall. And we did the first element of my voice technique, which was the breath, which is just the inhale, like how to inhale. Now, a lot of us walk around with inhaling kind of the opposite of how our body actually works, meaning the panic breath, breathing up here. That gets you away from your emotions. That covers your emotions. So I looked out at the kids and they were all breathing up here. So we did the lesson, which I talk about, where are your lungs? When you're sleeping at night, do you breathe at the top of the lungs, the bottom? And we all said, the bottom of the lungs. And we learned how to do the breath, which is basically down here and releasing the tummy so the diaphragm can do its work, which is another long story. But anyway, this young 11-year-old, she started doing the breath and everybody was good. So I was ready to move on to support, and her hand shot up and she said, Mary, why do I feel like I'm going to die? I said, oh, you feel like you're going to die, huh? And she goes, uh-huh. And I said, okay, well, let's think about this together. You were breathing high up here, right? For the panic breath. And now you've adjusted your breath so you're breathing as your body actually works at the bottom of the lungs. And I said, actually, what that does is it makes you feel exactly what your emotions are. You now understand that. And I said, so listen, you're 11 years old and you're 6 feet tall. Is that hard sometimes? And she said, yeah. I said, yeah, I can imagine that. So what we just discovered is that when you walk around, you feel like you're going to die. But the truth is, you're not going to die. You're 6 feet tall and you're amazing. So just keep breathing like this. We're not going to avoid the breath anymore by doing the panic breath up here. Just going to surrender into this breath. And we have a couple more hours to go in the class. At the end of the class, you tell me how you're feeling, okay? She goes, okay. So she keeps breathing. We do the whole class, comes to the end of the class. I said, okay, how are you? How are you feeling? She goes, wonderful. And this was many years ago, and she went on to get a basketball scholarship. She's this gorgeous young woman. She's amazing. So that's an interesting connection of your voice technique is in your emotions, and your emotions are in your voice technique. Like we found out when she changed her breath to be the breath that you use when you sleep at night, she found out that when she walks around, she's feeling like she's going to die because she's different than everybody. But when she stayed with that breath and just gave it a little more time, then she could just trust and be her. So that's a miracle to me. I mean, the breath of the body is truly a miracle.
What a gift you gave that young girl.
She was really special.
Yeah,
and to share the story, I think I'm hoping that it helps others have some, courage too.
Yeah, well, your music connects people. Like I'm in the book industry, and to me, the beautiful thing about books is they connect people. But music does the same thing, and that reminds me, many years ago, Peter Yarrow of Peter, Paul, and Mary had written a book, and I was lucky enough to be invited by the publisher to attend a launch party for him at his house in New York City. And it was a bunch of nerdy book people who went in, and we're so intimidated because it's him, it's Neil Sedaka, it's Judy Collins, all in his apartment, and we're flabbergasted. None of us could say a thing. And Peter says, "You know what?" He breaks out his
gosh.
guitar and he just starts singing "This Land Is Your Land" and encourages everyone to join in. And we're all singing. And as soon as the song ended, there was so much commotion, and in a good way, in the room. Everybody was engaging and talking and excited. Just that one song made us feel like we were all connected to each other. And that's the beautiful thing of music. And that's what I see you doing, Mary.
Well, can I tell you one story that's "This Land Is Your Land" in my book? Because
Yeah.
I'd love to share this with you if we have time. So it's the very end of my book. It's the epilogue. My mother, in the last years of her life, had dementia and Alzheimer's, but Alzheimer's 1, but just really dementia. And I would come to visit her in California for a couple weeks at a time, every couple of months. And so this particular day that I went to see her, she lived in a wonderful senior community with my stepfather. But I'd come and we'd go out, and she wasn't really talking. She wasn't really able to put a sentence together. Well, my sister-in-law had a cookie company in Mill Valley, very nearby, and I wanted to go there, but it was really tricky taking my mom long places because you didn't know what was going to happen. You could have a disaster, and suddenly we're in trouble. So I said to her, "Mom, let's just go to Jamba Juice down the hill, okay? I want to go to Beth's, but let's think about it. There's traffic today. I don't." So she said, "Okay." So we went down. We were sipping our Jamba Juice, and my mom looked up at me and said, "Let's go to Beth's." And she hadn't put a sentence together in that days. So that was like, "Okay, let's go." And we jump on the freeway. The traffic has cleared. We go to Beth's. Beth is like, "You're here. Come on in." Anyway, we walk in, and there's this, it's a quiet summer afternoon, and there's this guy playing the guitar at a table. It's one of those guitars that they put in the corner, like the pianos at the airport, that you can just play. And there were no seats, so I said, "Could we sit here with you?" And he goes, "Yeah, come on over." And he goes, "What do you want to sing?" And I said, "Well, Mom and I, we're singers." And he goes, "Okay, right." And I said, "Well, do you know This Land Is Your Land?" And he goes, "What key?" And I said, "Any key." And he looked at me like, "Really? You really know how to sing?" I'm like, "Yeah." So he starts strumming it. Mom and I start singing. She is singing in perfect harmony with me, like absolutely perfect harmony. Suddenly, the whole restaurant, the whole cookie place everybody is singing. The workers, the customers, and then the door flies open, and now it was like a musical. There was a long line out onto the street, and everybody's singing "This Land Is Made for You and Me." And my mom and I thanked the guitarist, and we got in the car and flew home and sang all the way home. So yeah, music is a miracle, and that song is a miracle too. Woody Guthrie did a great job with that song.
That's a great story, and a good note to close out on, because sadly we're out of time. I could talk to you forever, but we'll just have to continue reading the book for more
Right
stories.
back at you.
But where can fans find you? Because I'm thinking I want to see you perform live. So can you go to your website and find out where you're performing? Or do you do social media? Tell us where we can find you.
Oh, absolutely. I'm on Instagram and Facebook daily, and I have a YouTube channel, and you can even jump on my YouTube channel, which is just Mary Setrakian, and you'll find tons of my quarantine voice lessons. I give some free content, a lot of free content with my voice lessons. My website, marysetrakian.com. I'll be doing a workshop in June, so if you want to come sing with me, people are signing up right now, so you'll find the information there. And and follow me on Instagram. I'm there all the time, and I'm popping on doing different question and Q&A, also just impromptu voice lessons, and I love it. I'd be so honored. And I'm hoping to do a series very soon on my YouTube channel connected to the book. So if you have questions about the book, we'll get on, we'll talk together and answer your questions and do some impromptu exercises as well. So
That's
it'll be fun.
wonderful. That's wonderful. And just as a reminder, you can go on Amazon to get your copy of Sing, Mary's new book, which is beautiful, by the way, and offers so much incredible advice and information, and for every kind of singer, whether you're a sing in the shower kind of person or whether you aspire to be a Broadway singer like Mary. And you can also click on Mary's icon or my icon. You can follow us on Fireside, meaning whenever she's back, and I hope you'll come back sometime, Mary, that you'll get notification of that. We do weekly programs on Fireside. Our next program is tomorrow. It's part of our weekly audiobook narrator series, and the topic is TikTok sells books. So I hope you'll join us tomorrow. But Mary, it's been a real pleasure. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you wished I would have asked or you had a chance to say? Here's your chance before we log off.
Well, as you were just talking about an audiobook, I also have an audiobook with Terry Wallman was my director on that, and it's kind of like you can do a voice lesson with me, so you can have me in your back pocket. So just know that's available as well, which is just my joy. So.
And I love that, as I mentioned
earlier.
Thank you
for having me. It's been so fun.
Terry Wallman is the reason that we did this program today. He introduced me to Mary, and he did her audiobook. And you can head over to Terry Wallman on Fireside, Making It with Terry Wallman, and he interviews some incredible musicians. He's an accomplished musician himself. But I want to thank our audience today for joining us. Mary, it's been a true pleasure, and I hope that we someday maybe get to work together in person. But until then, continued success on Broadway with your singing and now with your new book, because we can add author to the many list of accomplishments you have. So thank you again, everybody. Thank you, Mary. And until next time, what is your next adventure by the book? Bye, everybody.